All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Dids in the Dugout. I'm joined here with a very special guest here today, Rebel starting pitcher Grayson Saunier. Y'all all know him from last year, the big freshman coming in, really talented arm, big fastball, good slider, and really showed some promise for the Rebels last year. So, first of all, Grayson, really appreciate you joining me here today. How you been doing, bud?
Good, been doing good. I'm happy to be on here and talk a little baseball with you.
Yeah, and kind of one thing that people don't know. Me and Grayson's been talking for a couple of weeks now, setting this thing up, and going into tonight, we were scheduled to start about 30 minutes earlier, and he sent me a message. He said, "Hey man, I'm still lifting weights, so can we push this thing 30 minutes?" So this dude is out here in the off season, even out of school, sitting here grinding, trying to get the Rebels back to Omaha right now, right?
Yes, sir, no doubt.
Yeah, that's kind of the end goal. So, kind of like I said, you were this big pitching prospect coming out of high school, obviously, big
Mhm.
arm, really good slider, drafted by the Rangers, who ended up winning the World Series this past year, right in the
Oh,
19th round. Kind of take
yes.
me through that night first of all. Kind of start things off. What was it like, kind of getting drafted there by the Rangers?
Yeah, so it was kind of a little bit different, I'd say, than everyone else's experience. Uh, I had gone home, so I had been up there at Ole Miss for the summer. All of us freshmen were up there, and um, a lot of us actually went home for draft night. And I knew I wasn't going to hear anything on the first night, but maybe the second day I'd probably hear something from some teams. And we heard a couple things, but it just wasn't, it wasn't the right fit. Um, and then so after the second day, I was like, all right, I'm just going to go back to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And so I drive back, and I get like to workouts. I'm in the locker room, and one of my teammates, Bo Gatlin, he
hmm
uh he told me, he was like, "You just got drafted by the Rangers," and I'm like, "I just got drafted by the Rangers? Like, stop messing with me! Like, that's not even
Yeah.
how." He's like, "Yeah, you just got drafted by the Rangers," and I looked, and I did. So I think it was one of their like courtesy picks,
hmm
late, draft. So it was kind of a weird thing because they didn't call me, and so I was like, okay, yeah, I got drafted, I guess. But it is
Yeah.
nonetheless pretty cool. Um, pretty humbling to be drafted by them either way. So
Yeah, and speaking of Bo Gatlin, that's one guy throughout all the fall scrimmages and all that y'all have had leading up to this offseason and all that. Every time I checked Twitter, it looked like he was hitting one out of the ballpark, right? I mean,
yeah,
that it seemed like that dude had an incredible fall.
he had a bunch of home runs this fall. I think he had a couple, maybe three multi home run games, two or three,
Mhm.
something like that. But yeah, he's got some juice.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's obviously something you wanted with a guy either coming off the bench or starting. We got some holes to fill in that
Sure.
lineup, and
Yes, sir.
Bo absolutely showed that he can take that weight on his shoulders and step up and produce. That was pretty cool. So, uh, kind of switching gears a little bit, kind of the recruiting process and all. I saw you camped at Ole Miss while you were in high school. Is that right?
Mhm. Yes, sir. I went to camp, I think my start of sophomore year or freshman year, one of the two.
Mhm. Yeah. Kind of what was it like as a high school pitcher being around like Mike Bianco and those guys, knowing the kind of guys that he's constantly put into the major leagues, getting drafted, and all the arms that's come through Ole Miss for the better part of 2 decades at this point.
Right. I mean, that was like one of the main reasons I chose Ole Miss was because of their like track record and how they produced a bunch of drafted arms. And
Yeah.
it was that it's close to home. The Swayze experience, can't beat that. Um, but yeah, Coach B has a great track record of one winning and producing good pitchers. So that's kind of what led me to that decision.
Yeah, like kind of like I said, you're close to home. You're from Memphis, the
Mhm.
Collierville High School, I believe, is where you ended up
Yes, sir.
going. Were you able to make it down throughout high school to watch games? Like not even as a recruit, but maybe even growing up, coming down to watch some games at Swayze.
Yeah, I went to, um, because I'm originally from Texas. So like the first year that I moved up here to Memphis, I remember my family, we went to a game. I don't know who they played, but I think it was their Omaha team that year. Went to a game, and it was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen, baseball wise. And immediately I was like, man, I would love to play there. Even as a young kid, like that'd be so cool. And then, but I mean, over the years, we would go to some football games, and I don't really remember. We might have gone to one other baseball game, but I think after I committed, I started going to a couple more, especially senior year. I went to like the opening weekend, saw them play Vanderbilt, I think junior year. So I went to a couple games. You know, it helps being close to home. But yeah, it was really cool. You know, kind of growing up and just following them. So
Yeah. Well, that went a completely different direction I thought it was about to go. And you said growing up in Texas, I just knew
yeah,
you were about to bring up the super regional when Texas came to Swayze Field back in
oh
the
yeah,
mid 2000s or whatever.
Mhm.
Because I was there for that one, and to say that was a heartbreak is a mild understatement. You know, you had them in Miami, but kind of going back to 2022, that was your senior year in high school before you
Right.
ended up joining Ole Miss. You see Coach B and this Ole Miss team off the back of their pitchers, quite frankly. I mean, it was that was the whole talk leading into that Omaha run was, do they have enough pitching? Then you see guys like Dylan DeLucia and your teammate Hunter Elliott step up. Also Josh Mounts, that's the guy that I was huge on that
Mhm.
entire year.
That's right.
Uh, those guys step up and just pitch their tails off and take Ole Miss all the way to Omaha. But not only to Omaha, you knew if uh, DeLucia and Hunter Elliott were pitching, those guys were going to win that day, and they ended up running it and taking home the national championship. I was in Omaha for that. I did a whole show about that after I finally
Oh
made
wow.
the
Yeah.
12-hour back, 12-hour drive back. So
Mhm.
that was really cool. Was that something you were locked into your senior year? That Omaha run that Ole Miss was on?
Yeah, so, I remember going to the weekend opener, or home opener, I guess, to open up the season that year,
Yeah.
and then I went to a couple other games maybe, and then, I wasn't really like they were doing okay, I was following them, they were doing alright, not really doing that well, and then they just started getting hot, and, I
Don't let the
didn't
Reds
get
get
to
hot.
watch them. I didn't Yeah, that's right. I didn't get to watch them in Omaha, though, because I was in Texas, um, at the time, and I didn't get to, go and experience that in Omaha. I wish I would have, but,
Yeah.
it was just interesting how, at the start of the year, it was, I think, a lot of different pitchers that were mainly pitching, and then towards the end of the year, it was completely different, like Hunter and Dylan, and then Jack too, were those starters, key starters at the end. So it kind of just shows you to always be ready, and because you never
Right.
know what's going to happen, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, and that I didn't mean to go down this whole Omaha trip with you.
yeah,
Since you weren't there with them, but just
mhm,
kind of you talking about that just now with Dylan and Hunter and Jack too. That big start that he had against Oklahoma in Game One of the College World Series. Yeah, those weren't guys that were in the starting rotation at all. Quite frankly,
right.
to begin the year, Hunter didn't get his first start until midway through SEC play against Alabama, I think,
Mhm.
something like that. And then Dylan kind of showed there at the beginning of SEC play. And then Josh Mallett, that's one guy that I'm really excited about for y'all's club this year. I think we really missed him last year. We didn't have the
We
depth we
did.
needed on that pitching staff.
Yeah.
Kind of talk about your first year, your freshman year in the SEC, though, right? I mean, it's the best conference in the country for the reason. You're an incredibly talented guy. But this conference has a way of kind of humbling people and kind of like your message earlier today. Hey, man, I'm lifting. Can we push this thing off 30 minutes? Does it kind of give you that mindset of, hey, if I'm going to survive in this conference, we have to work 365 days a year.
Yeah. I mean, freshman year was definitely kind of an eye-opening experience for me. I had a really good fall, like a really good fall freshman year, and obviously, I started going into the season, but I think I think one thing I can look back on that year is I think I got super sped up the game. I guess you kind of hear the game kind of gets sped up each kind of level, higher level of baseball that you go to. So freshman year, it felt so sped up when we started the season, and it was hard for me control that. And then towards, the back half of the year, I got a little bit more adjusted to pitching in that environment. And, the SEC is no joke. You're going up against the best of the best, which is, exactly what I want to do. But I think, going through what we all went through last year is only just going to motivate us, and it has motivated me and to work harder. But now I feel like, I've been there, done that. I have a different mindset going into this year, and I'm a lot more calm on the mound, and I feel a lot more relaxed, and like I'm supposed to be out there. So it's definitely an eye-opening year, but you can either learn from it and move forward, or you can sit back and let it affect you. So, but I tried to learn from it.
Yeah, and look, I personally think you had a really good freshman year. I was really impressed with the stuff you were able to do on the mound. There was one start in particular against Georgia, right? I'm sure you remember that one.
I do.
You go 6 innings, 1 earned, 2 hits, and 6 Ks, right? You got out there and you seemed really comfortable on the mound. Just kind of take me through what you remember from that game and kind of what you felt. And was that kind of the start of you kind of coming into your own as an SEC starting pitcher?
Yeah. So for me, I think what kind of I think when I became more comfortable out there was against earlier in the week against Mississippi State, because I pitched that midweek game. And I don't know, something clicked, and I pitched well against State, and then they had me throw against Georgia too, and that was definitely a fun one, because that was me getting back to myself, knowing that's exactly how I can pitch. Because I'm a strike thrower. I go right at people, and that was a fun one to finally get that really good outing under my belt was huge for me.
Yeah, and I've brought up Josh Mallett's a couple times already in this interview, but you remind me a lot of Josh Mallett's from his freshman year as well, right? Because just like you said, you're a strike thrower. You're going to put the ball in the strike zone. You're going to make the hitter beat you, right? And that's exactly what Josh did his freshman year. And then he kept working and working. And then that sophomore year in 2022, he came out. And I know I've told this story probably 5 times on this show talking about Josh Mallett, but I've only had internet since April of this year, so I wasn't able to watch every single game. I was listening to him on the radio, and every time Josh Mallett would come in, I kept hearing about the slider.
Yeah.
And so I text my buddy Hitch that does the show with me, and I said, "Hey, man, tell me about this Josh Mallett slider, because it sounds pretty nasty." And that seemed to be the pitch that kind of clicked with him that, quite frankly, turned his entire season around in 2022 and made him this unbelievable bullpen arm. And that's what gets me so excited about you, because Coach Bianco has the track record of developing pitchers from year 1 to year 2, like he did with Josh. And more times than not, it's because of that slider. And everybody talks about how good of a slider you had coming out of high school, and still have, quite frankly, not had. I guess that was a bad word, but you have this really unbelievable slider. So there's this jump between year 1 and year 2 that I always expect out of Mike Bianco pitchers. Is that something you're kind of seeing? We actually came to a fall scrimmage against Jacksonville State earlier this year, and I noticed your fastball. It's not up a lot as far as velocity goes, but it seems so heavy. Is that the rotation RPMs that you always hear people talk about when it comes to pitching analytics? But it sounds a lot faster when it hits the glove than what the radars actually show.
Right. Yeah. I think I'm getting a little bit more like carry on my fastball, a little bit more ride, they call it, this year, I guess this fall. I'm not sure like what changed that or whatever, but I'm supposed to, I guess I'm getting a lot more carry on it this year. So it's coming out of my hand good. But like the slider for me has always been like a comfort pitch, kind of a go-to pitch whenever I need a strike. So kind of like Mallett's, his slider, man, that Omaha year was just unbelievable. It
was nuts.
No one could hit him, man. They knew it was coming. No one could hit him.
Didn't matter.
We're all like really excited to have him back this year. He's going to be big for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of one thing I've talked a lot about on the show when I do have baseball shows, also in the middle of or towards the end of football season, now going into basketball season, but I always try to mix in some of these player interviews, because, like I said, I love baseball. I know Rebel Nation loves baseball.
That's right.
But one thing that I love about this team is the depth of the pitching staff. That's one thing that the coaches obviously went into this offseason and decided they were going to fix. It seemed like we were short a few arms last year, had a lot of injuries,
We were. Yeah.
obviously. But now you look around and you have, yourself, Xavier Rivas, JT Queen, you bring in Liam Dole, you get Riley Maddox back, Kyler Carmack's coming in, then Josh Mallett's coming back, Nichols and Morrell coming back this year. I mean, I sit down when we did our first baseball show and I started this podcast, and I was able to list out 11 arms that I was confident could go out and get us outs in SEC play.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure I ever remember a pitching staff as deep as this one coming up for the Ole Miss Rebels.
Yeah, I mean, I think the coach did a great job in recruiting and getting some key guys. It definitely, you can say what you want about injuries and stuff like that, and we had a couple last year, but we were just we definitely lacked some depth in the pitching department last year, and I think that's definitely one thing the coach is focused on. And yeah, I'm excited. We have a couple more lefties this year, which is huge, I think. We have some guys that can really pitch it this year. So I'm excited, man. I'm excited.
Yeah. So kind of one thing that I've asked all the players that I've had on here. It's interesting to me that we have so many transfers coming into this team, right? I've already mentioned Carmack and Doyle, but you have guys like Andrew Fisher and Trayson Hughes and Luke
Right.
Hill, guys all over the place. Kind of what's it been like in the locker room, all these guys kind of gelling together and trying to, for lack of a better term, pull in the same direction to achieve one common goal? Because I know everybody's goal in that locker room is to get Ole Miss back where they belong, and that's in Omaha, Nebraska.
That's right. Man, after last year, because there was a lot of returners last year, not as many new guys. Going into this year with a lot of guys leaving, I honestly think a lot of us didn't really know how well we would all, gel together, get along, and but like from the start, I think we're a close team already. Like we gel, pretty well, and we love all the new guys, freshmen included, and we got a really good group. So I think that's encouraging to to see, is especially we had some guys stay this year, like getting Groff back, Rivas back, those type of guys, with like leadership roles. I think has made that transition for the new guys a lot easier. So we got a good group, and like Fisher. Fisher and Luke Hill, they're kind of some characters, especially Fisher.
Yeah.
Kind of the life of the locker room. So they've been good additions for sure.
Yeah, and Trayson Hughes seems to fall in that same category too.
Yeah.
I mean, he seems to be quite the personality himself.
Mhm.
That was maybe my favorite interview I've done
Yeah.
with Trayson Hughes. He was a heck of a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But you kind of talking about leadership though, that just kind of got me thinking. You look back, obviously, Hunter Elliott's still dealing with his injury, right? But you get Xavier Rivas back, and I thought that was absolutely huge. Him and Roth
Absolutely.
coming back this year.
Absolutely.
But have you yourself taken on more of a leadership role, kind of looking around the locker room? It's Rivas is coming back, but he's only been there 1 year, just like you and JT
Right.
Quinn have. So y'all are all guys that have starting SEC pitching experience. So is it kind of y'all three kind of as a combined group trying to take over that leadership role from a pitching standpoint?
Of course. I think well, one of the things Coach B has kind of harped on this year is, I guess specifically said to us returners, is to really, help all the new guys, the young guys, especially. Even, I'm only a sophomore, right? But
Yeah.
I guess I'm a veteran compared to some other people who might not have been there as long. So, it's all about just, taking some of the young guys under your wing and just showing them how it's done in terms of how to carry yourself and, work ethic and all that. But Coach B is definitely, harped on that leadership part, because we didn't really have as much of that last year. So that's kind of one of the things we're focusing on this year. So yeah, I've definitely tried to take that step and help as many guys as I can, and just have a positive impact on the team. So
Yeah, you definitely have a leadership role, kind of like Coach B was talking about, that you were explaining, because you've been through the battles of an SEC schedule. You've been out there,
Right.
you've logged innings, you've done this before, you know what to expect.
Right.
Kind of fast forwarding a little bit this year, one thing that I'm really excited about, and it's a long ways away, but Luke Hill was the one that told me about it, that we are finishing the year before we go to Hoover in Baton Rouge against LSU, and I think that is the most perfect way for a college baseball season to end, is Ole Miss LSU in Alex Box Stadium. Right, it's such
Right.
a storied rivalry between these two big
Mhm.
baseball programs, and this is a series that always has regional implications, national seed implications, and I expect nothing less this year when we go in there, and kind of like I told Luke, and I told Will the same thing when I talked to him, is we've got to make sure that we go in there and we get this thing for both Will Furnace and Luke Hill, because we can't let those guys' families get on them too much, because the Rebels didn't
That's
get in
right.
there and take care of business.
Yeah.
So really excited about this season, though. Kind of what are y'all's expectations as a team going into this 2024 season, though?
Obviously, if your goal as a team isn't to win a championship, then I think you gotta kind of take a step back and reassess. So that's the goal, is to win a championship, not to get to Omaha. Omaha is that, kind of that first step. Obviously, you want to get there, but it's to win a championship. I think, that should be the goal each year. And so that's the goal. And anything short of that, we're probably going to look at that as a failure. But that's the goal. You want to win a championship. That's why you play as competitors. So, but I think, we really don't have to put too much pressure on ourselves. It really just needs to be, going out and being the best version of ourselves that we can be each and every day as a combined unit, and just play together and, believe that we can win. I think that's really going to help us. So,
Yeah, I think that was the big turning point for that 2022 Ole Miss team as well, is they put a lot of pressure on themselves when things weren't quite going right there in the early part of the SEC schedule, and then they just kind of loosened up and said, all right, it's now or never, so we might as well just go out there and play, and they played their tails off for 2 months there, and 2-3 months, whatever it ended up being, and run that thing all the way to national championship. So
right.
yeah, I totally agree. That's kind of my expectations as well.
Mhm.
We were kind of talking with some buddies of mine about the Ole Miss bowl game coming up, and I think it's cool. We're in the Peach Bowl, Access Bowl, all that kind of stuff. But
Right.
quite frankly, since I experienced that in 2022, Ole Miss baseball winning a national championship, I don't care about anything unless it's playing for a national championship. That's my expectation. I want to experience again. So I'm glad y'all have that mindset going into this year, because that's what I'm looking forward to, and I think y'all have all the talent in the world to be able to accomplish that goal if y'all play the way that y'all are absolutely capable of doing.
That's
So
right.
couple things before I get you out of here, though. I'm a huge Mike Bianco fan. Again,
Mhm.
anybody that's listened to this knows that I have defended Mike Bianco tooth and nail for the last 23 years. That's my dude. Name the stadium after him. You can name the city of Oxford after him, as far as I'm concerned. Love him. Kind of what's he like playing for him, right? I mean, we've talked a little bit about how pitchers and catchers really thrive underneath Mike Bianco. So kind of what's it like going into your second year, Mike, kind of tutoring you a little bit and trying to get you ready for that next level? Because I know that's the end goal for you as well.
Right. So far it's been a blast getting to play for him. He's kind of iconic, I guess, for Ole Miss.
Oh yeah,
For
the
sure.
goat.
And so he's one of those coaches that he's going to try and bring the best out of you, regardless of how you feel about it. He's super honest. I think that's one thing that I could say that I respect about him the most, is he's going to tell you the truth, good or bad, and he's going to give it to you straight. And I think it's important to be coachable, especially with him, because a lot of guys might not like that type of coaching style, brutal honesty, or he's kind of I guess more of a harder coach in terms of how he coaches. And kind of old school in his coaching. So, I think it's important that you just be coachable and try and listen to what he's actually saying. But I love it. I think he's I think he's got a lot of knowledge, obviously. So I think, especially on the pitching side, he's kind of helped me simplify things up on the mound and not overcomplicate things. And he's been a blast to get to play for so far.
Yeah, yeah. I would imagine that's how a lot of people feel about Mike Bianco that's actually got to play for him. So again, I'm a huge fan and glad he's in Oxford and glad he's going to be here for a long time. So I'm going to get you out of here with this. One thing that I have followed for about the last, I'd say 10 years or so, something like that. My boss up at work, his daughter plays unified sports for Ole Miss, and he had sent me a picture from the Unified Egg Bowl this past year, and you and some of your teammates were there supporting the Unified Ole Miss team there during the Unified Egg Bowl. Kind of, how did you hear about that, and how did you end up getting out there to support those athletes that night?
Yeah, well, Mason Nichols, he's kind of taken I guess a bigger leadership role on our team, and we all had like a group chat, and he texted us about it, and a lot of us went, and it was a good time. But yeah, it was fun to watch. I think we lost, but
Yeah, we did. I heard all
it's
about
a
it.
good thing. It's a good deal. It's a good event every year, and it was fun to get to cheer on those guys.
Yeah, well, I can tell you from firsthand experience. I know one girl in particular that y'all absolutely made her night, even though that they weren't able to pull out the victory that night. Y'all don't understand how much it means to those athletes for y'all to come out and support them. There's been football players, baseball players, basketball players over the years come out for that night and support the unified Ole Miss team, and it just means a ton to them. And quite frankly, it means a ton to me to know that we have athletes on campus that's going to take times out of their nights to not go out and do stuff that maybe you want to do with friends and stuff like that, but to support something like that, I thought was really, really cool, and it really meant the world to those athletes. So I really appreciate y'all going out there, and it's something that they're still talking about, I assure you.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a lot of people come support us for games throughout the entire season, and so we have a lot of people showing up for us, and I think it's just it's important that we show up for everyone else in Oxford. So it's a good opportunity every year, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you'll make it back out there next year when they play it again. I'm sure they'll be just excited to see you for the second year in a row. So,
Yes,
Grayson, I appreciate you doing this, man. I've kept you for almost 30 minutes. I think I told you about 20, so I have overstayed my welcome here with you. But I appreciate you taking out time. And look, man, we're really excited to see you get back out there for your second year on the bump for the Ole Miss Rebels. And kind of like we both talked about, we're chasing another natty. So get out there and let's get this thing done for the Rebs.
Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you inviting me on. So it was a blast.
All right. Thanks a lot, Grayson. Have a good one, bud.
Thank you. Appreciate it.